everyone, it's Alyssa here at the Township of Washington Library, and for December's adult craft, we are going to do, by popular demand, another paint-along. I know that these are so popular with everyone, so I got my video tutorial that I followed. I am not that artistic. I am crafty, but I am not that artistic. From a really wonderful website. It's called StepByStepPainting, and then I sort of just translated her tutorial into my own to show you some ways that I know we all work when we're working together, some instructions and just little extra bits and pieces. So I wanted to pick something nice and wintry. We're heading into winter, and I decided to do this little snowman looking up at this beautiful streetlight. Look at how cute. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with this little snow person. So cute. So I'm going to show you how it's done. If you got the kit, everything is included. The paint colors, the 2 different types of brushes, and a foam brush for the background if you would like. And then the paint colors, we used blue, white, yellow, green, orange, and a little bit of black. So I'm going to show you how I did it. I kind of break down her tutorial. It's super easy, but I broke it down even further. So we're going to get together and we're going to see how it's all done. Okay, I'm going to speed some of this up a little bit, but don't hesitate at any time to pause and catch up. So I'm going to start with my white paint, and I'm starting by making a circle. By putting down this white layer of the wet paint, it'll make it a lot easier to blend. I'm going in with a little bit of yellow with all the white still on my brush, and going in a circular motion and just blending till I get a really nice soft pale yellow. And then I'm going back into the white, still with a little yellow on my brush, and expanding my circle out, and the yellow will get paler and paler as I go. But now that I have this very pale yellow, and I'm trying to get it to be pretty much white, so I'm just going to kind of like wipe my brush off a little bit. Go back over, make sure we're getting really white. So in the video tutorial that I used, she said we're doing this because, right, we're doing a winter sky and we need blue now, right? We need to have that bluish cast of like a dark winter evening sky, right? So if we were to mix that blue into where it's really yellow, we're gonna get green. We don't want to do that. So I'm just transitioning to the white, and I'm making sure to blend it, but like I was just starting to say, while I had more of the light yellow and a lot of white, I went in and I blended this ring of yellow a little bit so it wasn't super harsh, and I just wiped some, you saw me just wipe some of the yellow off a little bit. So now I'm going back in with mostly white. There's very little yellow on my brush now at this point, and blending that, smoothing the shape out a little bit so that we will be able to transition our colors. Okay, a little bit of extra white around. This helps with blending, makes it easier. And now we are going to rinse our brush in the water and clean it very well. So I've got my water here, I've got paper towels. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is take some white and blue and mix a very nice light blue. So when we do this, we're not adding white to blue. It'll take a ton of paint. That's not how it works. So you're gonna have, I have these plastic paint palettes. My favorite way to do it before I had plastic paint palettes was just a paper plate. Use a paper plate as your palette. You don't have to clean it like I have to clean this when I'm done. It's so easy. You mix the blue into the white. So I'm gonna scoop some white up. And then we're gonna do a dab of blue. We're doing a dab of blue to get a nice light blue, but still has some brightness. Okay, so I'm gonna mix this in here. See how we're doing. Got a little bit more. Right, so if it's too light, I feel as if when I do want to add highlights, you know, it's going to be hard to do that. If it's too dark, then we won't have any shadows, right? So I think this is going to be our mid, kind of like our mid blue here. feel like our mid-light. All right. And paint tends to also dry darker, so I think this is good. This is what I have on my brush now, so let's keep on going. So I'm going to take this light blue and I'm going to start a little bit away from the perimeter of the wet white and work my way up to create the blend. And I'm going to continue making sure that I'm doing the circular motion because we want the brush strokes to go circular. I'll say that a million times. Okay, so you can see I'm doing the blue all around here, and it's not perfect, but I'm hitting this wet white spot. There might be some yellow bleed in here. It's fine. Don't forget to get up in your corner a little bit. Just work on blending everything in, so it's a lot of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? So see right here, my line is pretty harsh. Just a little dab of white to mix. And it's a lot of back and forth, and you just take your time with it. Right here I have a weird line. Let me grab some more white, blend it in, back and forth, back and forth. You may notice that in between going from white to light blue and back to white, I am not rinsing off my brush, and when I do that, it's just letting the colors blend together a little easier. It's creating some streaks that we might see in a sky with the rings of light, and it's just a nicer overall look with some diffusion and blending. And if you need to continue to kind of re-wet so you can blend easier with some white like I've been doing, go ahead and go for it. There's some dehumidifiers on in here, so there's a lot of cool airflow happening right now. So, and acrylic does dry pretty quickly, especially in an environment like that. So, you know, just go ahead and do what you need to do, and you can just keep going over it again and again. I'm gonna just do just a touch of yellow and white. What's gonna happen here? Just blend that in a smidgy bit. That looks pretty good, actually. I'm doing just a smidge bit. I don't want it to turn green. And if there's just like a slight bit of green, that's okay. All right, so that looks pretty good to me. Okay, so now we're gonna keep doing the rest of the sky. So I'm gonna grab this to cover a little bit more ground here. I'm gonna grab just the blue and dunk it into a little bit of the light blue to start for the blend. And let the colors be uneven and streaky. That's pretty, it's natural, it helps with transition, it's texture, and we're gonna keep going. And we're gonna work still circular, right? Because this is our light source, everything's coming from there. Still circular. So she says in the original video to remember that this is our light source, and so it's just gonna keep getting darker and darker from here, so you just keep on going. Ooh, look, it's starting to blend nicely. Ooh, that looks nice. Have fun with it, right? Like I'm trying to have fun with it. Just keep on going. Okay, so you may have noticed I've dipped my sponge into the water a little bit. That helps keep the paint a little looser and a little wet. It's gonna help us with, I guess, blending and just keeping everything going as we go on. and it's just making it like a little smoother, because now that we're getting further out here, I want less of these kind of white streaks. So see, I'm kind of still going through here and letting some come through, but then once I get down here, it's just the blue. It's just the blue. And again, make sure you're continuing to move in a circular motion, so all of our brush strokes are the same. We don't have any weather happening right now, so you know, there's no disturbance in our background, in our sky here. And then I'm gonna grab just a little bit of, where's the black? I need to go get the black. So what I'm gonna do is I will do, and you can probably see I keep kind of going in and touching this up too. It doesn't need to be perfect, it is nature, right? But I keep seeing things as it dries that I would like to blend out a little bit more. It doesn't need to be perfect. But sometimes it kind of creates a nice blending effect when it's starting to get a little tacky, not dry, but a little tacky. And there's like a nice blend that you can do with it. I mean, work with that texture of the paint, not dry, but just sort of starting to. Okay. So I'm gonna do my blue with just a touch of black. Again, similar to the white, you do a touch of black to your blue, not your blue to your black. That'll never happen. Okay, just a touch, and again, wet it just so the paint goes a long way, stays nice and wet and blendable. And we're gonna keep moving further down now. So now that this part is really, really dry, I'm just kind of going back in and just adding like a little glow, kind of a little farther down into the sky, but not too far down. And I'm just doing different shades of the blue for a blend, but I don't want my brush to be too wet. But I'm also not using this right now because this has black on it. So, we're working our way through. You also don't have to go through and touch this up with more white if you don't want to, right? I just kind of wanted to extend some texture further down. Don't have to.
This portion of the video is called Learning When to Leave Well Enough Alone. I think it looks just fine here, and I can really stop, but for some reason I kept going. You do however much you would like to do, and that's more than enough.
The next thing that you can do is, I'm gonna wash this off really well. This works best with a toothbrush or a very prickly brush. So if you have a toothbrush that, if you're like me, I do have a toothbrush around that I use for both crafts and cleaning, you know, like getting into the nooks and crannies on a stove or tile or whatnot. And then I can also use it for crafts. But you could try it with this brush, but it's just like a flicker kind of a thing. So we do like a watered down white, make sure our brush is really wet, and we do some white, and we just make sure that it's really, really wet. And the brush is not totally watch what you're wearing, watch your shirt, because it doesn't always flicker forward. But anyway, we're doing just a little bit of snow. Just a little bit of, see, look at that. It's just a little flick. And it's doing just fine with this brush, actually. And you just do as much or as little as you'd like. You do some big splatters, small splatters. Nice effect, okay? So then you can go wash your hands and let this dry. So we want this to be totally dry before we move on to our next step. So now that this is totally dry, my brush is also clean, I'm going to take the white. We're going to do the bottom here. So this is our ground, this is our snow. So I'm going to go right into just white, just only white, and start to paint my landscape. And it's, you know, snow is not perfect. It's in drifts and higher, lower, it dips down. So, you know, that's why I left some white down here, because I knew that we were going to do this. So I didn't need to 100% bring that dark blue all the way down to the bottom. So we're going in with a pretty thick coverage of white. I'm not wetting my brush here. So I'm just going to go in with the white and paint it. You can see I am picking up a little bit of my background color. I guess it wasn't as dry as I thought, but that's okay because we can let the layers dry, let the layers work, and cover it back up. It also doesn't need to really be the purest white. That's okay. Sometimes we like to think of snow as having a slightly blue cast anyway. This is a little too much for me, but I'll keep going in and adding the white as I let my layers dry. Okay, so I went in with my second coat of white, and I left some streaks in here for texture, right? Some snow drifts. I left some areas where there's just a little bit of that color mix that I had coming back through. Totally fine. So now I'm gonna take, this is still kind of tacky and wet, I'm gonna take a little bit of blue on the corner of my brush. I'm gonna dip it into some white first and kind of work that in. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the blue, the regular blue, and we're going to create shadow here. So we're going to blend that in. So start with that blue really right at the bottom, and we'll blend it upwards to create shadow in our landscape and dimension. So see, this is still pretty tacky, my white, and that's perfect. Like I said before, sometimes snow has a little bit of that nice blue cast. We always like to think of that. And of course, with these night shadows, there you go. Perfect. Blend it in so it gets lighter. There's still some streaks of shadow and texture, right? Doesn't need to be 100% smooth. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw in our lantern. This is my least favorite part because I can't really draw so well. I can craft, can't really draw so well. So you can use a pencil, you can use chalk, but because we're starting right up here at the light source, the lantern light, I'm gonna use pencil because it won't show so well in chalk. So the way it starts, it's almost a V. It's not a real V, it's very wide. So you'll see, right, like I'm gonna go like this. We're starting right where the white meets the yellow.
So I'm starting with that very wide V, and then coming up from the center of the V, a nice straight line going up. That's going to be one of the metal pieces that we'll make for our panes, our glass. So see, just go straight up. Then, instead of completely parallel, I'm actually going to make a little off-kilter, 2 extra lines. Those are the other edges of our lantern. And then you're going to connect them to the point in the middle. And then you can create your little slopey roof, the top of it. I'm adding a little circle on top for decoration. You can continue to refine and sketch this, especially as you paint it, which will be the next step. You'll be able to add a little bit more detail or fix up the shape. Then I'm going to extend these lines down just a little bit past our original V and make another V underneath. And then the next thing we have to do is make the pole. So I will, in a moment, I'm going to grab my ruler to help me with my straight line and drag that all the way down, even into the snow, just a little bit.
I'm getting this nice brand new thin brush, so it's got a really nice tip that'll work for us for these fine lines. So I dipped it into my water. I'm getting my brush pretty wet, and I'm getting some water into the black paint. I'm not trying to thin it out so it's sheer. I'm trying to thin it out so it flows better and we get nice lines, especially these delicate thin lines. It's easier when you have better flow. Also, you just don't want to press hard. We're not going to go down like we're holding a pencil here and really press. We're going to really just be very light about it. And now we can kind of adjust some of our shapes too. And then you've seen me do this in videos before. I like to then just kind of roll the tip and make sure the tip is nice and compacted and the paint is really on there. And very lightly, I'm just going to go in, holding my breath a little bit to do the outline of the lantern. Okay, the next and most daunting line is the pole. So just figure out which way is going to be easier for you to just drag that line. Again, dip into some of your wet paint. Make sure your brush is nice and wet so you get a really good glide here. Give your brush a little twirl to make sure the tip is nice and compact. And then just figure out which way you need to hold this to make sure that you're nice and steady, and go for it. And for me, I moved my arm, not my fingers, right? I just dragged my whole arm down. If you're really unsure about this, you could probably try to use your ruler, but I would worry about the mess that you would get moving your ruler. That's just something that I know would happen to me because I know who I am.
Next, we need to create the base of the lamppost, which is kind of just a little cone shape. Don't worry too much about it being perfect because we're going to cover it up with some snow, so don't worry about your shapes here. So I'm just kind of going in and filling in the black, but I'm also going to start to add some white highlights a little bit. And I especially like to do this while the paint is wet, so you can see I'm going in with some highlights. I'm mixing the black and the white for a little gray, and then I'm going in with just the white. The next thing we want to do is have a clean brush and dipped into some white to go ahead and cover this base with a snow mound.
If your black is bleeding into this a little bit, that's okay. Kind of like what we did before with this part of the snow. You can go back in over it a little bit when it dries. You could just keep layering your white. So I keep making sure my brush is clean. But I also like this because it just forgives the shape of the base. Okay, right? Forgives the fact that I'm not great at drawing shapes. Okay, so it's just a mound of snow. There's nothing perfect about a mound of snow collecting around a lamppost. But because I'm using the pure white and this white back here has some blue, it really stands out as a forward dimension. And then I'm going to take some blue and shadow just right underneath, almost like there's just a little lip from where the snow had collected. Okay, a little more blue. Okay, let's do it. And just blend that out a little bit. Again, it's just a little shadow. Okay, next it is Snowman time, and because my background's dark over here, I'm going to use my chalk. Again, you can keep using your pencil, but at this point it's like a little easier for me to use the chalk because it will show up better.
Okay, so I'm going to start sketching out my snowman. So he's just a circle. He's maybe a little bit more oblong. Then I do the second circle and see it's overlapping. Then I do the top, which is his head, and it still overlaps. I'm going to sketch in some of his facial features just to make sure I like the size of everything, but I am going to paint over it so I won't see. I'm going to sketch in his head and the arms, which you don't need to do. Now I'm going to start painting. We're doing bright, bright, bright white, and I'm moving in a circular motion. While this first circle is wet, I'm going to take a little bit of my blue and go in and start to make shadows. Remember, our light source is coming from above and on our right, so the shadows are below and to the left. I will be able to go in as this dries to refine my shadows a little bit, but for now I'm just going to start. And so I blended a lot of the blue, and then I'm going in with more of a distinct blue, and you can see the layers of shadows will just continue to add up. And then I'm blending a little bit of it around, but I'm putting a lot of bright white right in the middle. Now I'm doing the second circle, and again, bright white only, no blue. And I can go in with my shadows. And now that the first circle has dried a little bit, I can do some more shading, add in my highlights and my shadows. And now I'm doing the second one again, just some more shadows. And like I said before, as the paint starts to dry or even get tacky, I can really refine some of my shadow details a little bit better. So you'll see me continue to go back and forth a little bit and add in the bright white highlights as well as the blue shadow. Again, just remember where your light source is. And then I can move on to his head, that top circle. And again, make sure that this is overlapping. And then I can continue to work on my shadows and my highlights.
I do want this to dry for a little bit. As you can see, I'm kind of adding some of the yellow glow in here, but all of my paint is too wet, so it keeps blending together and picking it up. So I'm just going to leave this slight yellow glow here, and then let this dry for a hot minute before I go back in with the white, because I want there to be a pretty strong white highlight that fades into the blue. So I'm just gonna let this dry for a hot second. Make sure my brush is super, super clean so that when I go back in, it's just white, no yellow, no blue. Also, as it does dry, you saw me kind of, okay, so I did the bottom layer, and then I did the second layer. By the time I was done with the second layer, this first snowball had dried enough that I could go in and add a more solid bit of blue shadow. So, and then I went and I did the same to this. Then this had dried a little bit, So I went and added a little more of the blue shadow. Then I went and I did the top, the head, and I let that just be the white and did some of the blue, and then I went in again and blended the blue. So as it dries and you work in layers, you can add more and more dimension, more of the white. I started adding kind of an upward stroke, so he had some texture that was just not obvious, spinning in circles, and I'm going to continue to do that. Like I said, I'm going to go back in with some white when this has dried for a moment and do that.
Now that this is all dry, I can go in with my black and start filling in the hat. So this is really easy. I'm just going to outline it and then fill it in. Kind of like with the lantern, I can refine my shape as I go. And as usual, just make sure that there's some water on the tip of your brush so that your paint flows. Then you can do the branches for the arms. They're just some squiggles with some fingers. And I'm sketching out the face again, the carrot nose, just to get the shape right, and I'm using the orange. It will kind of go on a little bit sheer, but as it dries we can add the layers to really build up the color, and then I'll do some shading on it too a little bit later with some black. For his coal eyes, I'm doing little half circles because I think they're cute. You can do full circles or whatever you would like. Make the face whatever you want it to be. And see, I'm kind of adding some darker tones to the carrot a little bit just by doing a little bit of orange and black. I'm adding highlights to the top of the hat. Again, remember where our light source is and where things are on top and where things are below. And I'm going to kind of keep blending that out with some black too, but kind of on a drier brush just to add some texture. And I'm bringing some of that dry brush black. There's barely any black on my brush into shadow the snow of his face. I'm adding some snow to the tops of his little branches, his hat, and his nose, just because the snow is falling and I think that's cute. And you can see as the carrot dries, I'm adding some more layers to make that more opaque. I'm adding little white highlights to the eyes to give them life. And now for the coal buttons, I'm doing just 3. Do whatever you would like. And again, I will add a little white highlight to those just to show some dimension. And next I'm taking my green paint and I'm just going in boldly and adding a scarf. I don't really have any pointers for this. This is drawing. This is kind of hard, but it is squiggly and there is some snow, so maybe it's blowing in the breeze a little bit. Again, you can work in layers, and as your paint dries, add some white highlight, add a little bit of black shadowing, go back in with the green, and just keep adding your layers to get the scarf the way you want it to look. This is what it looks like when it's all done. You can continue to refine as it dries and add little layers and highlights and shadows, but I think it's pretty darn cute the way it is.
Okay, so I went back in after my scarf dried and I just touched up the highlights and the shadows a little bit. I did a little extra highlighting on the top of the lamppost. And so at this point, if you want, you can give him a little red bow on his hat, like a poinsettia, a flower. You can put a wreath on the lamppost. You can do whatever you want to personalize this and zhuzh it up. But I'm gonna leave mine just like this. I love this. This is so cute. And it's just so awesome how when a painting process is broken down step by step, it really doesn't need to be that intimidating. So I hope that you all have fun with this one. We'll do another painting project in January, another winter painting project, a little different. So look forward to that. I hope you will look forward to that. And I will link in the box some other painting tutorials that we've done in the past. I know they're super, super popular, and I hope that you all just have fun. It's just really relaxing. I really enjoyed my time doing this, and I hope that you all enjoy it as well. All right, everyone, that's it for me for today. I'll see you next time.